Good morning, Upper Sixth. So I read this article yesterday in the Times and thought I would write you a 50 mark paper. Half a paper, 60 minutes. You should be doing so many past papers by now. It's unbelievable. I thought I'd do this one on this article for you. Very interesting. We think that this industry are investing in automation. They want to lower their costs, and getting rid of people is quite an easy way of lowering those costs in the long run, even though it's really expensive in the short term to invest in this technology. And ASOS have recently closed their warehouse that they invested loads of money in to improve automation. And this is mainly because they got stuck with a load of stock, they had to discount it, and even though their revenues and sales have gone up recently, quite a lot of that is because of selling a lot of their stock off on the cheap, just so they can get some revenue in the company. Very interesting case study. Mentions Shein. So we've got those external new influences, those threat of substitutes coming in. And actually, when you're talking about barriers to a market, there's massive barriers to come in and compete with the likes of ASOS, but not if you're the size of Shein. So those threats of substitutes, maybe more people who want cheaper clothes are going to them. And what are ASOS? Are they premium? Are they high fashion? Are they stack it high, sell it cheap? You can decide really. So this 50 marker will look at these theories. So if you don't understand these before going on to the paper, then maybe you should check your notes. Here is the case study, and there's lots of information in here. This covers all of the 50 marks. So there's a lot of text here, but there's also, 50 marks worth of questions to answer. You've got lots of quantitative stuff in here if you want to do some form of maths. I've not suggested answers for this one, but I have put mark schemes in here for you. But please remember, I'm only a dalmation. I'm not an examiner, and what I say here isn't exactly what the chief examiner will probably say. And remember, if it's not in the mark scheme, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means that the mark scheme's a rough guide. And that's the same when you're completing Edexcel's papers, by the way. Just because they may not list an option doesn't mean it's wrong. Okay, especially when you come to paper 3, when you've all done so much research, you're going to be bringing in a bit of evidence for your 12 and 20 markers to complement the case studies. And it might not be in the mark scheme. Yeah, the examiners will know that. They'll be trained. They'll be fine with that. Just make sure you use the case study as well, okay? And it helps to answer the question. So our first question is looking at 2 difficulties. And as we know with our 8 markers, no conclusions, but we do need 2 P however paragraphs. 2 difficulties and a however at the end of each of those. 3 chains of argument, contextualize it, and we're off. So we have got changing, so we're talking about how it's changed, so that's quite important. And the organisational culture is what you'll be looking for in the case study. So how has it changed? And we know a company like ASOS, a common term like ASOS, is not just that they're fast fashion, it's also talking about their business cycle at the moment. How are they doing? Okay, what do they want to achieve? Those sorts of things, and that'll help you with this. But remember, you've got 10 minutes, and that's planning, getting the information out of the case study, and writing it. Our second one, likely importance. So we've obviously got our hook here, likely importance. It is important. It might not be as important as other things. We are not going to say something stupid like it is not important at all. Yeah, level 2 assertion. So importance of ASOS using competitive pricing. I'd expect a pricing question this summer. I'd be disappointed if we don't get one. So likely importance of, and then we need to think about what the aims are to help it compete against Shein and other brands offering low prices. Okay, so it's of this on competing. Okay, So they give you the aims and objective in the question here. So the examiner's been quite kind. It's a 10 marker and it's likely important. So we could go with that short, sharp structure of P, it's important, P, other things might be more important. Overall, is it important or not? And then justify, and you justify comparing to the alternatives, which is probably not using competitive pricing. Okay, especially when we're in context with lower priced alternatives. Gives you a bit of a clue in the question, hey? Then with this one, we've got a bit of a paragraph before the 12 marker, and we can see it's lifted some information out of the case study before going into here. Heavily discounted, 18% revenue decline. Assess whether cost competitiveness is the most important aspect of Porter's generic strategies for ASOS. Now, for ASOS, it's a bit like ASOS, we need to know the aims. And we could see here they want to improve their market share. Okay, so we have got most important aspect of Porter's. Okay, is it the most important aspect of, is this the most important aspect of Porter's to help them improve their market share? Okay, so these are linked. Make sure you come back to it. So you're going to need to demonstrate a basic understanding of market share. How is it measured? What's the formula, for example? Will always help you with this type of question. And remember, if it's the most important or not, you're comparing it to other factors of Porter's generic strategies. I've included this question in here. We did one in class from a past paper, the Tutor to You paper, that if any of my people who aren't my students are listening to this, you can go and buy it from Tutor to You. It's a very good set of paper 3 resources for this year. It's not that expensive either. They did a Porter's generic strategy question, and no surprise, cost competitiveness got confused with price. Go very careful. There might be links there, but there is a big difference between cost and price. So I've put it into this paper so you can practice it again. And our 20 marker to improve profitability. Yeah. More profitable or most profitable. We've got profit twice. Guess what the hook is? Right, so ASOS could either continue reducing its inventory levels or focus on reducing company costs through operational efficiencies. Okay, we've got 2 options. We know which one and we know what the aims are. Okay, so for this one, we're going to be doing 2 P paragraphs for each option, one in favour, one against. Then you're going to answer the question by choosing one. You can't just sit on the fence and choose both. And then you're going to justify by saying why it's better than the other option. Okay, work on your justifications. Generally, the ones I've seen are a little bit weak because they just repeat the arguments that you've already given. You won't get the marks for it because you've already had them. When you're considering MOPs, if you can think of something in context, then write it. And if you can't, don't bother. And you're thinking of something future orientated around one of those MOPS factors. This is where you pause the video for an hour and write. The next bits of this video are to do with the mark scheme, which I'm not really going to talk you through. You can just pause each one, print the screen, do whatever you want to do with it. And remember, they're just a guide, and I'm not a chief examiner. So we've got our level 3. We know what we need. We understand that there are not this bit in the standards. We do not need a conclusion. We just need this structure, and you've got some points in there which you can read through. Okay. Start with the definition. Here, because we said this is the importance, we could go with this structure, and you've got some points in there as well. You won't need all of them. And remember, some of this is contextualised, some of it's not. Well, you're going to contextualise it, aren't you, with using the case study evidence. Okay. Here's your 12 marker. And I've put some mops in here for you. This is just a suggestion, just to give you a little bit of a flavour about, so for instance, economic shifts such as a recession, and also put in there about the other way. You know, so if we've got a boom, for example, then maybe they want to be differentiating because people will be spending more money on stuff because they'll have more money to spend. So a good definition of Porter's generic strategies to start off with. This will help you to focus your answer properly and identify the evidence that you need in there. They used to be a bit of a differentiated brand. They tried to be everything for everyone, and they seem to have lost their way, and they're sort of lost in the middle of Porter's at the moment. And we'll see how it works out for them. But they've just closed that automotive warehouse. That seems like a very short-term focus on making some profits. We'll see, lower some costs, get rid of the old stock, let's make some profits, let's keep some of the shareholders happy. One of the biggest shareholders, you'd have read from the case study, is Mike Ashley, and I'm sure he will pick over their corpse if it doesn't work out in the short to medium term. We shall see. Not a very nice term, I do apologise. You've got your mark scheme over there from Edexcel. Now, I've not put the marking grids in for the 20 marker because there's just so much on the screen. I didn't want to do another slide. And we've got two definitions that we must demonstrate an understanding of. We also need to demonstrate an understanding of profitability, and probably sales revenue and stuff like that. But you've got to make sure you define these. If it was me, I would define one and then do my P paragraphs, and then I would define the other P paragraphs, and then I would come to my possible recommendations. Remember, you're going to choose one of these, not both. It seems obvious in the real world that you would probably do a bit of both. You can't say that until you get to your mops, then you can. Okay? If you look through some of these mops, you'll see that it might actually be a good idea, however, in the future to focus on both. But the question specifically says which one, so you've got to choose one. You'll notice I've listed justifications separately because it's something that you might want to focus on.